Well, welcome back to the final session of Grace and Truth. It's been great hearing the stories about how Jesus has used this series to transform people. And I'm just praying that God continues to create conversation, continues to create community in your life. I absolutely believe that spiritual growth happens in community and not isolation. And one of the goals we have is just to create these kind of groups where people start getting to know one another, where they start experiencing some sense of community. They experience what I call accountability, belonging, and care. We are so committed to this. I want to just kind of give you the big picture here at New Life. Our desire is to continue to just help with these study guides, to help create conversation and help create community. And we're going to be providing study guides 3 times a year. One after Super Bowl every year. Number 2, another one after Easter, and then one this fall. And I want to encourage you as a group to even start thinking about this fall now and start thinking, yeah, man, we could come back together and we could do this. And maybe during the summer months, it's a great time to perhaps find some service projects where you can serve the community, or even sometimes it's just getting together for barbecues and social gatherings. But allow what God has done in your group to continue just to have those times where you create community with one another. Now, this last session of Grace and Truth, honestly, is one of the most important ones. We're talking about how grace and truth restores. And let me just give you the burden. Here's the burden. And I want us to get this. Grace and truth people only have one goal. Okay, one goal. Followers of Jesus, the church, we have one goal. And the goal is to restore people. And I want that to sink in for a moment. Often we think our goal is to discipline. At times the church needs to provide church discipline, and that's a part of what we do. Often we think our goal is just to just bring truth, and that's our goal for sure. But at the end of the day, our goal is to see Jesus put lives back together, period. And the problem with the church, I think we miss sight of that. We almost think somehow it's our goal just to bring judgment. It's our goal to make sure everyone lives a certain standard. But when people fall, when people struggle, it is the church's job to partner with the Spirit, to partner with them, and see God restore people. And I'm praying that as we look at this last passage of John 21, you will see Jesus like grace and truth. As John talks about Jesus and he shows us his life, he gives us this beautiful example of how Jesus restored one of the disciples. Now, John 21, let me go and give you the big framework here. What's going on is Simon Peter, you have heard that he denied Jesus 3 times. He did that right before Jesus went to the cross. He denies him 3 times. And I want us to think about that for a moment. Here's Simon Peter, the guy that Jesus has spent 3 years with. A leader. Simon Peter was like the first century leader. Jesus spent time with him, apprenticing him, discipling him, leaving the church in his hands, if you will, after Jesus ascended to heaven. And what Simon Peter does, he denies Jesus 3 times. And we've heard that story so often, we don't even get the emotions. Can you imagine the embarrassment of Simon Peter before some servant girls to say, I don't know Jesus. I deny him. Think about that. Think about the shame, the embarrassment of Simon Peter and the feelings he was going through. And what I love about John 21 that you're going to read in your group. Here's Jesus after the resurrection. He takes time to have breakfast, literally to have breakfast with Simon Peter. I love this story because often when you look at some of the most important lessons that Jesus ever taught the church, he taught it not behind a pulpit, but he taught the lessons behind what I call fish, bread, and wine. He taught it in small settings. He taught his most important lessons when he was having breakfast with people. And here's Jesus, right before, this is after the resurrection, before he ascends to heaven, he takes some time just to simply sit down around a table like this and have breakfast with Simon Peter. Again, Simon Peter, he's feeling embarrassment, shameful. He just denies Christ. And Jesus comes up to Simon Peter, and here's what the text says. He says, when they had finished eating, I love that, after eating, having this conversation, Jesus says to Simon Peter, and you can imagine the conversation, Simon Peter, son of John, do you really love me? What a powerful question. It's a question of restoring Simon Peter to the kingdom of God. Do you really love me? Matter of fact, as you read the text, he will ask this question 3 times. You can see there in your study notes kind of different things Jesus was trying to get at. But he asked Simon Peter over and over, he says, do you love me? Verse 17, he says, Simon, son of John, do you really, really love me? And the whole goal of his question was this: Simon Peter, I want to restore you. You have fallen, you have sinned, you have denied me. But the whole goal of Christianity, the whole heart of Jesus is that when we fall, he wants to restore us. When we fall, he wants to restore us. Grace and Truth people only have one goal in mind, only one burden, and that is to see Jesus do something so deep in the heart of people that have fallen that Jesus can restore us. I want you to think about that. What would happen in your life? Maybe there's someone in your life that you've given up on. And perhaps they've hurt you or they've sinned so deeply, you're going, there's no hope for them, and you've given up on them. I want to encourage you, Jesus hasn't given up on them. Or perhaps in your own personal life, you've sinned and you wonder, can I ever get back on my feet? Can I really ever be restored? And I want to tell you, Jesus restores. He will bring healing. I want you to hear that. Grace and Truth people believe that. We believe fundamentally that the goal of Christianity is to take broken people and bring healing. That's why we talk about church. The church is not a museum for saints. We're a hospital for sinners. Who have you given up on? Who have you maybe been so judgmental, maybe out of hurt, that you've just given up on? I'm praying that God would restore in you a hope and a sense of courage to see that person return to the faith. As you read this text, enjoy John 21. It's like grace and truth wins. Grace and truth, it's like a beautiful picture how grace and truth is exemplified in our life. And by the way, Simon Peter went on, and he was one of the key leaders in the book of Acts. He preached on the day of Pentecost. Jesus used them after this fall to restore, to ministry, and use them for the kingdom of God. Again, thank you for being a part of this Grace and Truth series. I am praying more than just simply walking through the Gospel of John and more than simply coming together here, but you have found a group of people that you could have some conversation with and community with. And I'm praying that you would consider continue throughout these summer months. And again, some maybe barbecues, going out to dinner together, social gatherings, and maybe even another study. There are some beautiful studies out there on Right Now Media where you can study something during the summer. And then in the fall, we're going to jump back into another series and really continue that God will create community, will create conversation in all of our lives. Thank you for being part of Grace and Truth series. Enjoy your conversation as you talk about John 21.